The Liberty 25 School District Study Session will now come to order for June 24th, 2024 at 4:30 p.m. First order of business, Pledge of Allegiance. Ms. Bixler, can you lead us?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 1.3, 4-day school week. Dr. Monroe.
Yeah, Vice President Parks, members of the board. So hope you're having a good summer and thanks for being here. We do have a quorum. There's 3 board members that are able to be here. We wanted to spend this study session kind of with 3 topics, and I'm going to, in just about 30 seconds, turn it over to Dr. Sloat and Mrs. Camp. But the first thing is we wanted to kind of go over some summary data with regards to the 4-day week. We've done this a few times with the board, and we've kind of taken this calendar year to try to gather data so we can evaluate our decision, which I don't think it's going to be too different from what we've seen before. But this next few minutes that we can talk and Dr. Sloat can explain almost serves as a bookend, almost a little bit of a closure of a lot of the work that we've done. And I've asked Dr. Sloat to have a final report here, maybe September, to the board. And we'll also look at creating almost a PowerPoint slide where we can present at conferences on the transition to a 4-day week and the pros and cons and things like that. So that'll be the first thing. And then we're really excited to have Mrs. Schaefer and Mrs. Camp here to talk with Dr. Sloat to talk about our DAP. You hear this word DAP. It's a newer tool, our data analytic portal that we want to let the board, make the board aware of, eventually get you kind of a login after this meeting so that you can go in and look. But this is going to be a really exciting feature that you guys can see to help our leaders and our teachers move forward. So we'll kind of drive you through that. And then the last thing is we're appreciative of Mrs. Schaefer for being here. Thank you, Sarah. She's going to actually talk about how the DAP almost comes into action through our data trackers and what that looks like on our campuses, which a lot of our principals, all of our schools have this idea of data trackers. So those are kind of the 3 things that we wanted to go over with you tonight. And I think it'll be really valuable. We want your input. We want you to ask questions. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Mrs. Camp and to Dr. Sloat.
Dr. Monroe. There? Dr. Monroe, members of the governing board, thanks for letting me take a few minutes just to go over the late spring additions to our evaluation document of the 4-day. Ms. Camp is going to drive for me as we walk through, and you do have a handout there that should follow slide by slide that you can take away with you. When we met in, I believe it was December, I presented different sources of the data in the evaluation design that we had been collecting information on, and we went over some results from that time. Since that time, we, in May, instituted the year-end, sort of the post-first year survey work. We embedded questions on the 4-day in the parent climate survey, the school staff climate survey, and the district administration climate survey. And we do those climate surveys every single year. We just integrated the 4-day sections into them. In addition, this past sort of 2.5 months or so, I personally conducted 31 employee interviews, from teachers to instructional support people, school administrators, district administrators, and leadership. With that. And that concludes my presentation. Okay? So the reason I wanted to do this is that all these interviews were conducted as human subjects research, confidential. We used a confidentiality agreement. It was one-on-one and in person with that. Total of 17 hours of interactive audio with those 31 individuals. And I'm still in the process, so I don't have the total like word count, transcription count, but lots of great stuff, you know, and sitting and talking about the topic one-on-one with our employees with that. In addition, right now, I'm beginning to add the year-end comparative data from the spring test scores, both for 23 and 24, the staffing, teacher retention, recruitment, in which we'll be working with Dr. Mahorn to obtain student absences, enrollment, and financial and expenditures data that I'll work through in a bit later this summer. Then the last piece is that since the 4-day questions were added to the climate surveys that we do every year, which are really extensive, comprehensive, one can take the results of those questions and those perceptions of just their normal work environment and compare them to the end of the year last year. So pre and post, and I'll present some of those today to you.
Dr. Sloat,
Yes.
before you leave that slide, the N at the end, at the, like it says, superintendent, student council leadership, is that the sample size?
Yes, that's the it's the response rate. So it's the number of records. So 923 records, responses to that particular survey instrument. Yeah. So when I go back, and a couple of days ago, I thought, just how much data do we have to work with on this? I went back to the pre-implementation surveys, both in February and September of 2022, which are loaded with it's purely about 4-day perceptions and recommendations. The early implementation of the feedback surveys in the fall of 23, the mid-year monitoring feedback that we did in November, the end-of-year climate surveys, other formal meetings and committees that we obtained information for, and the personal interviews. And when I look back just at those, that's a body of data that's nearly 7,500 individual records long and deep, both on quantitative metrics and qualitative feedback, quite a bit. Then when we add in the climate surveys from the end of last year and this year to look at things related to the work environment, we can get up to about 9,500 data records being pulled in to the study. Yeah, and I'll have all that completely looked at by August, when I get through it. But I just wanted to give you the breadth that Liberty has in looking at this question of 4-day on it. So to summarize, you saw in November, this section up here with parent, school, district, and the general satisfaction with the implementation of the 4-day. That was about mid-year. And now I'm adding that comparative the end of year. So we can look at, if I were to read across here, from the parent survey, 75% were either strongly agreeing or agreeing with or satisfied with the implementation of the 4-day. 80% for school staff and 80% for district admin. And then when we look compared back to mid-year, we can see that those numbers haven't moved very much. So they've stayed pretty stable. This is taking the proportion of satisfaction and dividing it into those that are unsatisfied. So it's kind of like this 5-to-1, 10-to-1 ratio that's going on. And you can see how that's played out from mid-year to end of year.
Excuse me, Dr. Sloat. So since the number 10 is smaller than the number 12.8, we can say that the people are more satisfied?
Well, it would say, you're right here, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So this 80% would be 80% responding that they were satisfied with the 4-day, and it's going to be 10-to-1 for every 10 people responses that said they were satisfied or very satisfied. One would say they were not satisfied or very unsatisfied. So it's a 10-to-1, right, with that.
12.8, so every 12.8 people.
Yes.
One person was dissatisfied.
Yes.
So it's actually a little bit less.
Right. And you have to be careful about, how much movement here is really interpretable. So if you get some small movements, especially decimal points or just a few integers, it's really not going to tell you anything statistically significant. It's probably within the standard of error.
I was wondering if there were significance drawn from that. It doesn't seem like it.
I would say that these are consistent for that time.
So,
on that.
the district admin staff, so we can assume 20% of district admin staff would like to go back to a 5-day week. That's hard.
Not exactly. Not exactly. If you interpret that, that's I'm very satisfied or satisfied. Oh. You know, it's nerve-wracking being up here in front of you guys.
I didn't think it was very clean.
In most of the work that I do, I have a center part to a scale. I always try to put a center part. It's either going to be an unsure or something, or usually what I do is the two satisfactions, very satisfied, you know, and satisfied. And at the end would be another extreme. And in the center, I try to get something to go one way or the other, but then I'll clump those together.
All those numbers, actually, they're very positive.
They really are.
They're as good as they were.
And I think at mid-year, I said if you were to press me what the balance between the two, it would be about 75 favorable, 25 have some problem with it. Now, I also said at mid-year that because these aren't 100%, that does mean you've got this of 20% that are there that are not responding, that they like are strongly feeling favorable about it. And I think in any program evaluation, it's not enough to know just the majority. It's really about organizational improvement. So the depth of the work is really digging into those that are not here, because that's where the improvement will come from.
Now, statistically, though, anytime you make a significant change in any organization, you're going to see 20 to 30% of participants or people that aren't going to like change. I mean, that
Fair point. Fair point.
statistically always been a situation
Sure.
that I've looked at. You know, trying to narrow that gap's always been difficult.
Right. You can go back to, I think it's Rogers' diffusion of innovation, you know, and the steps of implementing a new policy. You know, there are the quick adapters, right? No, so they might be very good. But in the initial mid-year, 1 year, first year, it kind of lays out about 80% there. So when we look at the parents and we go back even farther perspective, we can go from February 22, in which we asked the question, would you be interested in the 4-day, regardless of the cost savings, regardless of any financial? There's no center mark, so unsure is an NA. So that question was written with just a yes or a no, because it was a quick survey, I believe, at the time. And 68% said they would be interested. Then moved to the same group, parents, in September 22, a little bit more direct. Do you think the district should transition? And you get 60%. And at first blush, that's a big drop. But that scale had a center mark. That's it. So really look at the no column, which stays fairly stable. So what happens is that yes is getting absorbed. That 68 is getting absorbed a little bit in that 12% on that. And then when we drop into the implementation years, the mid-year and the end of the year, the parent responses jump to 76 and 75 on that. So if one wanted to ask how are opinions changing over time, I can explain that drop. But then we move into actual implementation, and this is a big change from that.
There's some data there that's interesting because if you look at the responses on the first two, which is that has its own information behind it, right? Because you're going to say, correct me if I'm wrong, of course. Typically, you get people in surveys that are strong on one side,
Sure.
right? And if you're not getting the same type of feedback, it's more in the middle than it is in the direction. It's kind of takeaway some of that. Is that
On some of it, and if you're speaking to the sample size itself being really very large, that also was a survey that I believe that had 4 questions on it. And it was at the beginning of actually the governing board's policy discussion to think about this in the administration's discussion. So would have a lot of interest. This one is the same way. The policy environment was moving along. It was getting much more play, and a relatively short survey with a couple of questions got a strong response on it. When we move down into the mid-year and the climate survey at the end, this survey right here is very complicated. Has been, because we've been doing it for years. And this one was targeted, but we have 905 here. So that's a significant drop in it. Now, you have to read into that what you'd like, but I can only report to you what the data says.
I know, when I'm looking at data through my different organizations, I kind of have a tendency to look at what's not there as
Yeah.
opposed to what's there, because you do have to have a takeaway from it. You have to have some idea of what they're telling you.
Yeah, absolutely. In these different cases, I'll look at how these proportions move, and if they're stable, if they're in the ballpark, if they stay in their thing, but the end counts are changing, that gives me some sense of either validation, or it gives me some sense that there's a problem with validity if things jump around. Next slide. I'm going to go this one quickly. This is the staff perspective, and I'll just focus in on early on in 22, 78% of all staff in the district were in favor of looking at the 4-day. It dropped to 57, but there's that at its center mark. So if we look at the no's, that stays very stable. Then we move into the implementation for the staff, November and May. You can see here 77 to 80%, November and May for the district admin. Excuse me, dry. Need to take some water. 82 and 80%. But again, looking at the really big drop is from in the no column, that once we began implementation of it, these unsatisfied column figures drop significantly. I got some. Thanks. This last one is the parent, where we compare the climate survey data. So it's not specific 4-day question. It's this first one between 2023 and 2024. How concerned are you that your child or children are falling behind academically? In 2023, 61% said they had little or no concern. At the end of 24, which is our first year of implementation, 67% said they had little or no concern. So we see what I think is a statistically significant increase. I haven't tested it exactly. We see some stability on the prompt of whether they're satisfied with the education that their children are receiving at their school, 68%. Fairly stable with overall I'm satisfied. The letter grades are in the 75 to 79% range, pre and post 4-day. And the letter grades they give the district are relatively stable, 67, 65, pre and post 4-day. So that's where the really depth of it, to be able to go and look at these different dimensions across these different data sources and investigate it. I am going to skip to the end, if that's okay. You want me to? All right. Yeah. So my comment is that from the May survey, the parent comments, whether they were positive or they were negative, the dimensions I spoke about previously all turned up again, right? So people that are really positive on things, it's because of student and family wellness, family time activities, breaks, stress release for their children, that kind of thing, family things. If you were had concerns, you would be concerned for students on the stamina issue. The lost day or hours, so a decrease in opportunity to learn would be a concern if you had that. Families, the Friday impact on single working parents and two-person working families. I would say when I get finished with the qualitative analysis, this is going to be one of the ones that comes up most often. The concern on the impact of a working family. I'm going to, these are my personal interview notes. And I started this process with a flawed assumption in the interviews as a qualitative researcher here. I had the assumption that when you take a 40-hour work week over eight hours a day, 5 days a week, and you simply take that 40 hours and you move it to 4 days, 10 hours a day, that time-wise, that's completely equivalent. And there's really no difference. And yet through the surveys, through the interviews, I kept hearing over and over again, lost day, less time, more stress. I have to be more efficient and effective in what I do. And I got to the point that I'm talking to somebody, I say, time out. Did you not feel that last year when you were like teaching, or you were as being a school leader or doing your job for the district? Did you not feel that? You didn't feel like you had to be more effective? And they felt under the 4-day, something was different. That was my first thing I had to change. The second one, nothing else in the work context really has a substantial impact on the day-to-day things that teachers and leaders were experiencing in the 4-day. That is absolutely not true. That was shattered. And it was shattered because there's all these other things happening in our organization this past year at the same time that we're doing the 4-day. And so for the researcher, I'm trying to ferret out what is a factor for 4-day and what is a factor that's not really related to the 4-day. So last slide. I come up with these things that are impacting and will impact how I write the final report and my conclusions. First of all, the shift to the 4-day was not agnostic to you as a classroom teacher. It's not the same of teaching under a 4-day and it is in a 5-day. Why? Because 4-day is a longer day. Because 4-day changes the block size and the time that you have. 4-day is conceptually or contextually different, or can be different, than under a shorter 5-day work week. That's the contextual experiential context. And it would be the same for you and I if we work 5 days for a short amount of time or 4 days for a long amount of time. We might have a different experience and a different reaction to that longer day, just like the concerns for kids. We did 3 new full curriculum adoptions. I hope I got that right, Natasha, for math, social studies, and science. And along with that adoption came new instructional pacing guides. Pacing guides that laid out week by week by week what you should be teaching if you're teaching Tier 1. That was not as intense in the prior year, but was very intense this past year. So I have a shorter day, longer day, I have a shorter week, a longer day, a new curriculum adoption in 3 different subject areas, and new pacing guides that are very specific, right? And it's increased system-wide evidence to progress through the instructional pathway. You must make progress. All of those are happening at the same time as the 4-day. Then we had a substantial increase in the focus on the use of formative measures, formative assessments, and for teachers to look and record and react to formative measures. And we're going to talk about that later on. And then finally, this, a substantial reduction in the on-site non-instructional time as a result of the way we implemented 4-day. Why do people keep saying, I have no time? Or a leader say, I have less time to bring my teams together. I have less time to react in short terms to things that happen week by week. It took me a while to put it all together, but we switched from 4 dedicated on-site early release days. That's the phrase. It's dedicated on-site, meaning it's the site's time to do with it what they want, or the teacher's time on-site every week to do whatever they need to do. We switched from that 2 hours a week, or 2 hours a week or 8 hours per month to one structured PD day with 2 hours and 30 minutes per month for on-site non-instructional time. So it's a drop every month in 5.5 hours of this personal time. So where were the comments coming from on, like, I don't have time to get together with my, do my prep and my planning and that kind of thing? It's from here. It's neither good nor bad. It just is less time for doing the things. And at best, some of this lost time is split across the 4 days, but this change right here is impacting instructional leadership. It's instructional classroom teachers from the instructional standpoint, but it's also impacting leadership in the terms of the time they have to react to and put together collegial teams or problem solve or whatever you would use that Wednesday afternoon for. The Wednesday afternoon was universally just saying, didn't really work very well. Not many people had good things to say about the Friday afternoons or the Wednesday afternoons. But that's an efficiency question. Now, the comments are that it's not there. So even if we wanted to use it, we couldn't. I'm going to stop at that. Questions or comments?
That responsive, was that the 30 minutes?
That's the third. This is all from the interviews that I had. 31, 17 hours, trying to piece together. It's where I can go deeper on a concept and say, how come you said lost day when you haven't lost any time? Or I could ask them more deeper questions about PD and what the context of the professional development time is.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Sloat, speaking to that, so that was your in-person interviews. How much do you think that reflects in what the staff survey said? Because
A lot.
it's overwhelmingly supportive of the 4-day in the survey.
Sure.
But these are your in-person interviews, and this is the detailed data that you're getting to.
Yeah, you can you can take everybody's from the surveys. You could take all the people that said, I really, really like the 4-day. I'm very satisfied with it. And in that, then look at their qualitative responses. And you'll find lots of them saying this could be improved, or this was an issue, or whatever. So as I said in November, it's not that everybody here thinks it's glowing. That's why one digs in a program evaluation, in an organizational research, you dig into what they're saying and what the buts are, but, or however, or especially if they're unsatisfied, why are they unsatisfied? Because usually those ideas, those feelings will be sort of larger than the response that you're getting, if that makes sense. Yep. And the qualitative surveys, the protocol that I used, the questions I asked were driven by the comments from the surveys. That's how I built the protocols. That's how I knew to ask certain things with that.
So you kept using the word of efficiency, and so I think what we have to extrapolate out of this is what administration, what this board needs to look at to take those top 3 or 4 things that keep coming up over and over, and see how we can better assist in those shortfalls.
Exactly. And from me, I'm going to be talking to Dr. Monroe in the final report when I write it up in the discussion section. I'm going to be thinking about those things. What have we learned from this? And I think there are a few concepts that come up. PD is one of them, but staff this year have been all over that in getting more feedback specifically on PD and the structure of it. They're changing the structure of it for next year. I think they hear from the voices that are being heard here. It's really impacted Natasha's area. But there are some other ones, and I think some challenging ones, and that is time, the lack of time. So if you keep everything the same, that last one, and you want to do more intervention with kids, or you want to say to the leaders at the school sites, you have to do this in addition, the question becomes, where's the time? Where is the place to do a better job in doing something new as an intervention? And the way I'm hearing these voices say, there's no time because of the structure.
So
Does that make any sense?
as we look at it, and over and over, they're asking for more PD time. Did any of them talk about adding another day to our PD schedule to make 3 days instead of 2 on Friday?
Well, that was a topic that was raised in my, I noticed in the pre-implementation, the pre-decision. There were lots of different scenarios to do that, on about where do we add or where do we put the PD time, what type of PD should it be. In this case, in our implementation this past year, the PD day, 1 day, is pretty structured.
Yeah.
And that's why I use the word on-site. On-site was a word I'm using to say my time as a teacher or as a principal, my time to work with my staff, as opposed to just PD in terms of going to a workshop to be better at phonics and stuff. So really the core takeaway is the sort of the flexible time. Now, whether that's PD or whether that's planning or whether that's collegial team building, that's up to the local leader to decide.
So one of the things early on when we were looking into the 4-day week, it was about, and you just said it, the Wednesday afternoons were a waste. Yeah. We heard that. We heard that we had a couple issues about attendance, both teachers and kids Friday. And the ability for teachers to have the free time to work on their planning for the next week. So some of this to me kind of is in conflict a little bit. So, we're going to have to dig into this a little bit, obviously, but it's like we're sitting here going, we can't kind of have it both ways. What do we provide maybe in an alternative for Fridays? Is there some other things that we can do to give those things to the teachers that they're looking for?
Well, if that is what this data and information's raising amongst the policy group here, I think then that research is doing its job, making us ask the question, not is it working well? Yes. Are people satisfied? Yes. Can there be improvement?
Yeah. Can we do better?
Can we do better?
Can we do better?
And I think that's where the strength is, and that's what's motivated me as far as
Yeah,
doing it.
and I think Vice President Parks hits it right on the head. That data is going to serve us to evaluate how can we do it better. And before we go on to DAP, which is going to launch you onto it, and just remember, we still have a very small sample size. I mean, it's been 1 year, and think about all the other elements that have competed with the 4-day, all the transition and change. So I think when we have this conversation again in 12 months, it'll be a lot more rich because we'll have 2 years, a bigger sample size. So Ed, let's launch into the DAP and have you and Natasha take that away. So maybe some of these slides, you just kind of highlight some of the pieces.
Sure.
So we can really get into the portal.
So the district last summer implemented a new data platform. It's called Power BI. It's part of the Microsoft stack. It's classified as a business intelligence application. And we implemented and used it for the first time at the leadership team meetings last summer to look at the state testing and the benchmark data. And then we've been implementing it more and more throughout the year. And so we're kind of excited to talk about it a little bit today. So what is it? It's the vision here of implementing is to bring a single point of access. By single point, I mean you go to one place, click on it, and you have access to a wealth of information, organizational information, academic information in the district, whether you're a teacher, whether you're a governing board member, whether you're a principal, a single point. Why do I make that as a vision and bring it up? Because in most organizations, data sits in isolated I'll call them data stores, silos, and quite appropriately so. The DAP, Data Analytic Portal, and the implementation of Power BI, I'll say PBI from now on, is not intended to get rid of those data stores. Synergy, our student information system, has a ton of reports, very useful. Employees throughout the district rely on those reports. One click, they go in and they get the answer they want for that particular thing. What the business intelligence platform will do is looks at all of those data stores and tries to bring together highly complex data into a single place so you can manipulate it and interrogate it. Oh, you already changed that to that. So this is sort of the beginning of last year. Data stores for our district. It's a little simplistic, but there. So we have Acadience, Illuminate, the state test. We have our HR, iVision staff, Synergy, student information system. We have staff evaluation, and we do survey research. All of those can be considered isolated data stores. All of them have tons of data in it. And the idea of a data warehouse would be to bring all that data into a place, a location, we're going to call it a data warehouse, such that we can implement various data analytic tools on that data. And this is structured. So it's selective pulls of data from these isolated places, putting them into one place, and then linking them together to provide rich, deep, detailed examinations of the data depending on the question. Here's an example of the table schema for the 2024 AASA data that we looked at our leadership conference. This is the underlying data structure, pulling data from many, many different sources, including the student-teacher course. Every student, every teacher, every course during the day, brought in, mixed in with every student's test score. On Illuminate, benchmark 1, benchmark 2, state assessment at the end of the year, and some other information on it. The Data Analytic Portal is composed of 4 different sub-areas: organizational analytics, assessment outcomes, survey research, and selected topics. Organizational analytics are the things that are the day-to-day running of the district: enrollment, demographics, attendance, discipline, things like that. Things that are the administration-based function of the district. The assessment outcomes, obviously, is the location that we're placing all the assessment data. So if you would click on the next slide. Oh, I see you clicked there, okay.
Do you want me to go back?
Yeah, would you just highlight the next one and go to the next slide? The single point of entrance for anyone in the organization is the district webpage staff subpage under frequently used links, data analytic portal. That's the click on it. Many people that I'm working with will take the URL for that and simply put it as a shortcut on their desktop so they can go to it. So what I'm going to do today is we're going to, in a short period of time, we're just going to drive through 1 or 2 of these reports to give you a feel for it. I invite you to invite any of us from IT, from myself, to get with you one-on-one, make sure that you can access it because there is security on it, and that you know how to go in and move yourself, navigate around things. Navigating through the reports is different in this kind of data visualization than it is in a traditional spreadsheet or things like that. So why don't we click on organizational analytics? So here's just our sort of landing page. You can see this first one has enrollment, demographics, special education detailed, discipline. Oops, all right. There we go. Special ed discipline, staffing. This enrollment projections is from the previous one. So I'm going to be updating that in the next weeks to the current one right here. Staffing from HR, discipline obviously from our systems. So here is a data dashboard for enrollment totals and demographics. Down here, you can see a list of schools. These are slicers. These allow you to filter this information instantaneously, to recalculate the data. You might want to reset filter.
I just.
Oh yeah, because that's right, because school is on that thing right here. So if you wanted to isolate any of these pieces of data, you can click on Las Brisas Academy. You can go and see the count for ELL, special ed, gifted, free and reduced price lunch. You're looking at home distribution of home languages, whether the attendance, whether they're in district open enrollment, out of district open enrollment, or in boundary, gender, typical things like that, and the enrollment count. So this would be the first logical data dashboard for an organizational analytics. How many kids do we have? And if one were to click, just click on 6 right here. And you'll see the interactive, how it changes. Everything on the dashboard are interactive. These become dimensions, these become measures, and the more dimensions you have, the more you can pick and choose how you want to display or enter the data, or by the question that you're having. Does that make sense? Some sense on it? Yeah.
Excuse me. So it allows you to drill down.
It allows you to drill down on steroids.
Yeah.
Because if you drill down, you're drilling down in a particular dimension, right? So you have some outcome measure, and you drill down dimension by grade level, for instance. But drilling down by grade level, by gender, by special ed, means you're drilling through this data in multiple dimensions.
Right.
And so the beauty of the business analytic framework, whether it's Power BI, whether it's Tableau or anything else, is that all the slicers and the filters put multiple dimensions that you can put together to the question that you're asking, and the way you're asking it might be different than the way Natasha's answering, right? So the more dimensions you have in the data, the deeper you can go with the questions you're asking. Let's click on discipline. This particular report, I stopped the last one on May 2nd for the end of the year, and here is a discipline report. And the focus here is on unique discipline incidences. Not, if you think about the discipline data file, you can have an incident, but you can have 15 different entries in that because there's lots of dimensions to that. So this is focused on unique discipline incidences. So in the course of this last year, there were 1,735 as of that date, unique discipline incidences on record in the district. Then everything else becomes the depth and the dimension of that number, right? With that. So getting down and looking at the violations. So let's see if we want to.
Dr. Sloat?
Yes.
When you look at the unique discipline and you look at that center column, school and school number of incidents, you're right. The percentage, that's the percentage of the total population. So Blue Horizons had 13% saw some kind of disciplinary intervention.
Yeah, how you can see that or test that view of it is the total incidence is 1735 and the total incidents unique are 1735.
Okay.
So you know that the proportions in this particular table are taking that 1735 of unique incidences and asking the question, how are these incidents distributed across campuses for that? And then if one were to click on a school, then that's a dimension. Yes.
Real quick. So that's okay. We don't have to go back.
Sure.
Yeah. So 2 questions I have real quick. One is, who enters the data in this? I love the presentation. I love having this data and being able to filter it out. Who enters the data?
The original entrance of the data comes at the school site.
I think he's saying from from Synergy, like Synergy.
It goes into Synergy.
So Synergy talks to that. The teachers and us talk to Synergy.
Okay. So you enter into Synergy and then Synergy automatically fills this out. Perfect.
There's a lot of programs
Good.
Yeah.
That's good to hear. Then when we were looking at, these numbers, is there a way to go back to, well, we're just starting this, but next year, is there a way to go back to this year and see what the numbers were and compare and contrast?
The answer to the question is yes, you can. Have I done it or have we done it yet? Implemented a longitudinal view of history of discipline? No, we have not. Anything, if the data is there, is possible to look at.
But I think to your question, Chris, that's what's exciting about the DAP is
creating
we're
the
at the
data.
infancy. So when you ask that question, then next year you can look year to year, and principals and teachers can look year to year, which is very exciting that it's one-stop shop, right? And one representation, one dashboard.
Let's go out of this if we could. Go out of this. Let's look at. Let's go to the assessment. Assessment outcomes is a different category, and this is being cut off because of its length. But in actuality, I'm running out of room now, so this is getting crowded. So there's going to be a redesign of these pages this summer, probably into the fall, where it makes it more sense, easier to get to. We cannot show you current assessment data because it has not been made public by the State Department. So we're going to show you last year's 2023 AASA analytic report. And you can see immediately as you look over to this side, you have pages like tabs in a standard spreadsheet with performance levels, standards, writing standards, correlations, proficiency tables, science data, Illuminate data, Acadience data, and the depth. So the depth of it is there. All of those data sets sit in an isolated silo. They're all separate right now. And this we hook into it and we bring it into this. So one can look at the 2022 last year's data or prior year, current year in this setup. Then what did we do leadership team last summer, Natasha? We had them all at tables for their schools, and we looked at the district-wide data. District-wide data because there's no filters going on here. There's no dimensions being selected. So that's right for that. And then we had them look at, for instance, in math, is there a gender effect going on? What would the outcomes be if they were strictly non-special ed versus special ed? Socioeconomic status type thing, measures, not low income or low income, and what effect of that. So what that immediately does, it starts to place in our heads the weight or the influence that a dimension has on some outcome. It's not statistically.
Let me interrupt you, Dr. Sloat, because we're going to move on to Sarah. But listen, you can really see the possibilities here. It's quite exciting, and we're in the first inning of the game, and so we're going to make sure Ed's going to work with you to make sure the board members also get your access. Be patient because this is living. I mean, it's living as we go, but we're really excited to show this to you that this is new and it's innovative and it's out of the box. And even our leaders are getting used to it and our teachers. So it's really quite Star Trek New Frontier for us. But it's really pretty exciting because as you can see, you can, to Brian's point, drill down with steroids on a lot of different issues. And it doesn't always answer our questions, but it allows us to look at the problem with overlays and through different lenses, which will help us action plan on behalf of students. So, Vice President Parks, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to say, look, you can't make business decisions without analytics. And the ability to drill down, even in the places that are sensitive, right? The places that you don't want to is critical because you can't make decisions without understanding where your key issues are. And, we actually are seeing an analytics program here where we can start drilling down and seeing behaviors. You can see, which groups are having difficulty, which aren't. And, I know this gets into a touchy area with some things, but if we can't identify certain groups or certain things that are having issues, we're not going to be able to solve the problem. So I think this is huge. Thank you.
Exactly. So, Dr. Sloat, Natasha, why don't you kind of transition and give a transition, and we'll turn it over to Sarah where this goes to kind of the data tracker.
One more second. I want to I have to do this shout out. So I totally love this stuff, and I spend my time on it. I couldn't do it without IT, because they're the back end of everything that made it possible. So totally have fun doing this stuff.
So yeah, Natasha, that kind of bridge. over
Sure.
to Sarah.
So while Sarah takes the USB hookup, HDMI, when we look at data on the DAP, right? It is still formative and some of it is summative. But we have asked our principals to look at data that's also real time, right? What's happening in the classroom right now? A vision that I and Dr. Monroe, as well as Dr. Mohorn, have is that we can walk on any campus and say, what is your evidence of student learning? How are your students doing in ELA? How are your students doing in math? And so Sarah is going to actually show you, Ms. Schaefer is actually going to show you how we track that data in real time so that our teachers can make informed decisions also in real time.
All right, thank you. Just get set up because I talk with my hands here. All right, maybe I'm not. Okay. All right, so this is an example at Las Brisas. So every school does this. They do it differently to meet the needs of their school. So know that when I'm presenting today, this is one example of the 7 we have out there. So we're just going to take you through a little bit of it because we are in the middle of transitioning over to our new data trackers. I have 3 that we saved from you and redacted student names to show you today. But when it's over, I'm happy to walk you through it anytime at our campus and we can dive in a little deeper as well. So thank you to Ed for sharing the DAP. We use it. Our teachers use it really effectively and often. But the DAP does reach a limit. It reaches the limit of it cannot provide us the day-to-day information we need to truly make instructional decisions. So our teachers and our school site says we need something else so that we can be proactive. We're not waiting until afterwards to make a decision on how to best support a child. It also supports my core leadership team and myself to say, we're going to be proactive and go in and help this group of kids because the teacher's already helping all these other groups of kids and they need extra support. Or then we can provide support to a teacher, a grade level, or a subject. It lets our teachers and ourselves be more intentional about what we're providing. A lot of times when you don't have this information I'm about to show you, you go, well, I know this kid needs help, but I don't know where to start. And then the teachers don't feel successful, the kid isn't growing. So this lets us really target in. It also allows us to be transparent with each other. Hey, I'm struggling with these 5 kids in this standard. I need support, where the collaboration comes in, where we can help each other. If Mr. Parks is scoring really highly on RL2, I want to know what he did so I can do it with my kids. So all of those things are just the 3 biggest. There's a lot of other reasons we knew we needed this. So I'm going to show you a little visual. This was the previous thought in education that, I lived my life on, right? So we're going to pretend the bright green is our Illuminate assessments. We're going to pretend the blue are our unit assessments. So tests that our curriculum gives us after we're done teaching a unit. It's usually after, a couple weeks. And then our pink is our AASA. All these little blanks in between, we're going to pretend are lessons. Now, obviously, there's significantly more than that, but they wouldn't all fit. So we used to go, all right, I took the Illuminate pretest and surprise, my kids need to learn all the standards for the grade. So I start teaching and then I teach and I teach. And at this point, I'm 3 weeks in. And then I take the unit test. Oh my gosh, my kids got 50% on it. I thought I was doing so well. So I do some small groups here, but I'm still teaching a new standard now. Do some small groups, I'm teaching a new standard. Do some small groups, I'm teaching a new standard. I give another test. Okay, I don't know how they did on the small groups because I didn't retest that. And now I have this new set of standards that they didn't do that great on. And now I need to clean these up. Oh, but there's an Illuminate assessment that tells me those same things over again. It really wasn't effective. We weren't seeing any movement or growth. It was frustrating to teachers. It was frustrating to parents. It was frustrating to kids. So this past year, we wanted to fix these problems. We wanted to be quicker to respond. We wanted to know the specifics about what kids were not mastering and what parts of those things they weren't mastering. Were they not mastering rounding because they were rounding starting at 4 instead of 5, right? It can be something as simple as that a multiple choice unit test cannot tell me. And we wanted to see, is my intervention effective or not? Rather than going on 3 weeks with an intervention that is not working for a particular kid. So instead, we moved to this model. We still have our Illuminate assessment, and in between each of these lessons, we're going to give an exit ticket, you might call it. Maybe it's student work that they did during the lesson. Maybe it's a little pop quiz type question on Illuminate that you're giving them. They go in and answer really quick, and when they're done, they move on to silent reading. And then I give my unit assessment, but my unit assessment is no longer a surprise. I knew how they were doing, and I intervened in between. Then I start the new unit. They maybe didn't get mastery, so I'm still moving them in my small groups, and I'm assessing along the way. Because with our new model, we're able now to track students to mastery rather than just tracking them on a test. So this would continue year long. So by the time we get to AASA or end of year Illuminate, I know where the kids are going to be. Our teachers know where the kids are going to be. The parents can know where the kids are going to be, and the kids know where they're going to be. So what this does, though, is it makes us have to put this information somewhere, right? So I'm going to skip this benefit thing because I already addressed it. So what we did was we then said, well, let me finish up here. Our DAP tells us our Illuminate, and our DAP tells us AASA. We need somewhere to put these two things in between. So we worked with our teachers during a teacher retreat, and we created this staff website. So on here, you'll see a lot of links to things, even our lovely governing board meeting tonight. And one of their big boxes, the most clicked on boxes, is their collaborative team box. In this has lots of things such as their pacing guides, PLC agendas, but as you notice, the biggest box is data trackers. So then we go into grade. Today I'm going to show you third grade math. So third grade would click in there. This website just makes it easier. Things get lost in our Google Drive. So this helps our teachers out, make it more efficient so we can do the hard work instead of trying to find a document. So these are examples that I was telling you I pulled. I already pulled them up here. You click in and you would get one of these. So when our teachers first started with these standards, we said, hey, we're going to start with just doing a pre-assessment for each unit and a post-assessment. We're going to see, did they grow in my shorter time of teaching, a week or two? And we can see, oh yeah, look at all these celebrations. We're building confidence. We know our instruction's working. And then as we went along, we started to add in, oh, we're realizing that, I don't know why this is being funny. Oh, there it goes. I see a slide over. We're realizing that there's little pieces to the standard that I actually need to track. You'll see here it says NFA2 versus NFAB. Oh, so now as a teacher, I want to know, are these two connected? They live with each other. If you read the actual standard, they're built off of each other. I want to know, oh, they're getting this one, but they haven't 100% mastered this. So as a teacher with my team, I'm problem solving, I'm creating my small group instruction. As they progress, so now we're on our third one, you'll see that they started to break up their small groups. Again, these would be kids' names. I redacted them to numbers, but they went in their data and they said, okay, based on where they are in this exit ticket, a couple days into instruction, they sorted them. So they bring them all to the PLC and they sort. And they said, well, student 2 is not rounding using the 5. Neither is student 7 or 10 or 14 or 17 or 22. They're going in this small group. I'm making all of this up, okay? The second group, they weren't adding correctly with their place values after they rounded. So they're all going in this group. They already mastered that. They don't need that small group. They're in this small group. Some kids you might see in 2 small groups. This child might need support with addition. They also then need support with the next step in the problem of, finding their remainder, right? Again, I'm making this up on the fly because I did not write down the numbers of the small group. So this really supports the teachers. They can then go into their classroom. They pull this up and they go, yep, I remember who these kids are. I'm calling their names. The kids know why they're in the small group for that specific skill. And then they move them out of that small group as soon as they're done on the post-assessment so they can track progress over time. So with that, I'll let you ask any questions, comments you have regarding our data trackers.
I'm going to just throw one thing in. I really like what you're doing here. And again, this kind of correlates along with the other data sets. As a board member, I would like to see this in the in the analytics systems, the DAP system that we have. I would like to see somehow we get that into a system. It's one place that has everything. Assuming this is the direction we want to go, because then it's consistent for everybody. So this is great. I mean, I can't say enough. This is kind of from my perspective. This gives us something tangible to look at. And again, I go back to making decisions based on data. So thank you.
I do have a question. So it appears to me that you're going to be able to also see the staff that are using this information, correct? So if we see students that are struggling, and we can then look and see are they meeting and so on and talking about it, because we can see them looking at the data.
Yes, we do. We see that in their notes from collaborative teams and at LBA, and I know a lot of other schools too. We sit in with them as a teammate. So either my instructional coach, our assistant principal, or myself, as often as possible, are in the teams, down in the work with them, helping them sort, pulling a small group alongside them. So we also know they're using it because we're part of that discussion.
Can you see them looking at the student data?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you can also, beyond just the collaborative meeting.
Yes. Yeah. In the meeting, they pull it up. They talk about their student data. It's an expectation they set to have it in ahead of time so that they're not wasting time grading and scoring in the meeting. They come, they're ready to go. They say, hey, they can go to this main grade level one here. This was an exit ticket. It says B, but it just didn't transfer over correctly. If I were Miss Wilson's class, I would go, oh, this strategy worked. I'm going to document this strategy so we as a team continue to use it. If I'm Miss Googans, I'm going, ooh, tell me what you did to support this learning objective and being mastered, and I'm copying what Miss Wilson said. So we see evidence of that in the instruction, both whole class and then also as they're talking about their different small groups.
Yeah, the amount of information this develops is amazing. Between this and what the state's going to provide us through the state testing, we should know a lot about our kids.
Yeah, I'll just finish by saying our teachers have grown tremendously with the transparency of sharing data. This is very vulnerable for them, right? To be able to put up scores comparatively and say, I got these results, you got those results. How do I get those results? And so, we've talked about psychological safety a little bit. We want to make sure that they feel safe and supportive in sharing the results, because this is the data, right? That the data is speaking the truth about what students know and what they don't know. And it's our job to do something about the data.
Well, I'm going to add just one thing. We talk a lot about support systems for students. We got to remember we have to have support systems for teachers too.
Yeah, I think that's right on, Vice President Parks. That's exactly right. We're not there yet. As you know, we got a lot of work to do. We all feel a sense of urgency. These are tools. I'll tell you what we don't want to be. We don't want to be data rich and action poor. Okay? Because this is great. We all get tickled at all this data, but it's really easy to get lost in there. So it's all about focus, and it's all about focus on the students. And I think Natasha's point is well taken. Our organization as a school district, we are not here yet. I think you're seeing great things, some great things that are happening at Las Brisas. But as a standard system, our mission statement is to guarantee that all these kids, all our students learn at high levels. And this is one of the ways we do it. But it takes change from teachers, and it takes vulnerability, and it takes kind of putting your ego to the side to say, wow, I've taught for 10 years, but the teacher next door to me has only taught 2 years, and she is knocking it out of the ballpark. So there's a little bit of, okay, these are our kids. Let's swallow our pride. And I'm here not for adult convenience, but for student learning. And so I just want the board to know that this is what we aspire to be. Okay, I know we're all really excited about it, but like I said, we're in the first inning. But the joy comes in the journey, and this culture is shifting, and the change is happening. And we want teachers who have an affinity for this. You hear Sarah's passion. We want leaders who have an affinity for this, because this is the focus on the students and not the focus on adults or the focus on it's how we've always done it. We don't want that. We want to focus on the kids. So Sarah, thank you. She was sort of voluntold, but she does a great job. It's stressful to be with the board. And so I hope this was meaningful for the board. And so I'll turn it back over to you, Vice President Parks.
Okay, with that, we'll go ahead and adjourn this work study session at 5:35 on June 24th, and we'll reconvene in 5 minutes. Liberty School District regular meeting will come to order for June 24th, 2024, 5:30 p.m. Jerry Rovey Administration Building. Members present are Board Member Kenyon, Board Member Bixler, and myself, Vice President Parks. Tonight
Excuse
we
me,
won't
Vice
have...
President Brian Parks, can I correct that time, 5:42?
Sorry, 5:42, yes.
Thank you.
Didn't change my sheet. I apologize. I'm running a little late here. Member Sarsoni and President Todd are not with us here this evening. First order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. Miss Board Member Kenyon, can you lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Move to item 3.3, approval of the regular agenda.
Vice President Parks, I make a motion to approve the regular agenda form consistent with policy BEDB and temporarily suspend the governing board policy with which this agenda may be inconsistent.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Your vote, please. Start with you, Mr. Kenyon.
Aye.
Ms. Bixler.
Aye.
I'm also an aye. We'll show that pass 3-0. Move on to 4.1, the governing board update. Mr. Kenyon.
Yeah, thank you. Last Monday, I had the chance, a number of us board members were here at a study session, and I just wanted to thank everybody involved in that. I think the board as a whole is moving the right direction, trying to get things set up and ready to go for this coming year. And I'm excited that, we're working on mission statement. We're working on all sorts of different things that we're pushing forward. So I'm glad for that. And then last Thursday, I was able to go to the summer program that we have going on over at Rainbow. And they are doing such a good job. We have a little over 200 kids involved in that, and teachers from all over the district willing to go and spend their summer with these kids. And it's just amazing to see what's happening. Every room we went into, there was just so much going on. The kids were focused, the teachers were focused, they were having fun, and they were learning, which obviously is the key right there. And every one of those kids, and sound like the highlight was where they get to once a week go and try and pick out a free book as long as they made it there. So it was a lot of fun to see. And so thank you for that. And my comment to Dr. Monroe while we were there was, how can we grow this, right? Summer is such an important time for these families and kids. Obviously I don't think it's mandatory, but it's wonderful when the parents know that this is coming up and say, hey, you know what, I think my kid could use a boost in learning, and this would really be a good avenue for them. So getting that out to the public, getting that out to our kids, and really kind of pushing this to see it grow would be awesome. But I just want to thank everybody who's involved in that.
Ms. Bixler.
Yeah, it's been, you would imagine at the end of the school year, there's lots going on, and there sure was at the end of the school year between the last board meeting and this one. There are 9 different things I attended, but I don't want to highlight all of them. I want to highlight one, but I do want to at least mention some of them. The pre-K developmental graduation that I saw at Liberty was amazing. Terrific job, lots of parents. The talent show at Estrella Mountain, again, a magician. I've never seen a student talent show with a magician. It was amazing. And the Chinese hoop thing, the Chinese yo-yo, wow, amazing. The final spring concert over at Rainbow Valley, the amazing amount of growth that program has seen in the talent, it's just incredible. The kinder graduation at Liberty, again, was great. I loved the New York instead, and first grade, wonderful stuff. Then over to the Freedom. Thank you so much, Freedom, for inviting me to be part of the 8th grade promotion ceremony. Terrific thing that went on. And then later, the next day at their step-up ceremony with the bubble parade, terrific. I have the amount of parent turnout there was just incredible for both of them. They had to open up both sides of the gym at Youngers to accommodate the 8th grade promotion ceremony. It was incredible the number of parents that were there. And then the West Star STEAM camp, it was wonderful. I want to call out the Hogwarts hut as far as one of the things they built, and I want to congratulate House Huff and Puff for their terrific win in the competition. Also, the School Board Association, their Summer Institute was around. That was great. Lots of good information. But what I want to talk about is the very first career day held at Blue Horizons. It was terrific. And one of the really nice things that happened was they asked the board members if we'd be willing to participate, to talk about our careers. Well, my career is public education. So I assumed that the kids really wouldn't need to hear about me. They see it every day. But I could talk about public service. And so I offered that up and had a chance to teach 3 different classes over at Blue Horizons about public service. And it was terrific. First of all, thank you, Blue Horizons, for making this offer to me. I'd forgotten how much I enjoyed teaching. I got to teach 3 different classes that day. I taught 2 7th grade classes, 1 6th grade class, and it was spectacular. It reminded me why I love so much this profession, this teaching profession. But I did ask for the students to do something on their way in. I asked them to tell me what they wanted to get from this presentation. And so I got a number of cards, 70 cards with what they were expecting. I pulled out a few because I thought they highlighted some of the things they said. First of all, I got one that says, and this was good. This is what I really wanted them to know. This student was expecting to get information about new opportunities. Great idea. Another one, I hope to get info about how to get money. I thought, good reason to be here. Although public service, not a lot of money in it. Another one, I want to learn more about how to get money and stay wealthy no matter what happens. A bit beyond my wheelhouse, so I couldn't help that child, but it was interesting. That's what they came there for. How to respect and support others. That's what they came for this too. It was amazing. Information on what you do. They want to know what I did, so we got to talk about what it was like to be on a school board. And they wanted cookies. Unfortunately, I didn't have any cookies, so I couldn't help them out. This one student was more direct. He said, I want food. Didn't have any. I did have a root beer barrel from a Haymaker, so I did give that child a root beer barrel, but unfortunately, no food in the presentation. Next question, this was a good one. They want to know, how hard is it? That's a good question. This is a career, this is something I want to do, but how hard is it? That was an interesting question to ask. And then my favorite, and this wrapped it up, and I hope every child got the same thing when they left. I hope to get a stable future and information I could use to help me. I can't think of a more noble reason to go to Career Day. Congratulations, Blue Horizons. It was a wonderful experience.
Thank you, Mr. Pixler. I just want to say I got to obviously attend the Rainbow graduating class, and that was always, it's the second time I've been there, and you know, those are amazing kids over there. To watch, I mean, I don't know how to say this, but the attire that they wear and the culture there is so amazing to watch, and it was just a lot of fun for me. And that place was packed. It was a hot day. The gym was fairly hot, but wonderful parents, and I really enjoyed that. And if there's one thing I enjoy doing most of all in this position, is going to those events, especially watching the graduating classes and seeing the hard work we do and how it's paying off. I also got to go to the Australia, kind of the move up. And again, I think my favorite part of that was watching the new kindergartners come in. They're so cute. And anyway, it's always an interesting thing watching and how the kids move up and kind of get through all their, their different levels. And I watched, all the little things that they promised to do, and I kind of snickered in the background. But anyway, it was a lot of fun. I also wanted to just add, For the public out there, the amount of work that's being done right now getting ready for next year is incredible. There's so much going on behind the scenes. You can come to this administration office anytime and it is bustling. We're getting prepared so many new things for this next year. We're really looking for an outstanding year next year. All right, we'll move on to 5.1, consent agenda. Would anybody like to pull an item? With that, I will ask for a motion in a second.
Mr. Vice President, I move that we accept the consent agenda as written.
I'll second.
With that, do we have any discussion? Nope. Okay, with that, a vote. Mr. Kenyon?
Aye.
Ms. Bixler?
Aye.
I'm also an aye. I'll show that vote passed 3-0. So we'll move on to agenda item 6.1. Discussion consideration to approve the fiscal year 2024-25 proposed annual school district expenditure budget. Dr. Monroe.
Vice President Parks, members of the board, I'm going to introduce Becky Williams. Becky has been a consultant helping us in the business office during this time, as you know, over the last few months. Mr. Dane Bolden is sitting over there in the audience. So he's got a few days where he can still be civilian status. But come July 1st, he'll be our guy, and we're really excited. And I appreciate him being here tonight. But this is the time when we're going to propose. Mrs. Williams is going to explain the budget to you guys, the proposed budget. What happens is we'll ask for the board to approve it tonight, the proposed budget. It'll be posted online so the public can see it. And then at the July 10th board meeting, there'll be a hearing where the public can comment on it and then ask for the board's approval. I do want to remind the board that during the school year, there's revisions made to the budget. As you know, that will be brought. And but I just wanted to kind of give you that quick little summary, and Becky's going to highlight kind of a comparison between this last year and this current year, and then a few things that that you need to know in order to approve the budget tonight. So, Mrs. Williams?
Thank you. So tonight, the proposed budget, there are some changes. According to the state, they did finalize the budget this last Friday. They did make the new budget forms available today, but seeing we already had the budget done, Dane will have to decide whether he wants to do a September revision because of the multipliers. There are probably some multipliers that we didn't know about. So let me go over the ones that we do know about. So the base support level, which is the dollar amount we get per ADM, has gone up to $5,013 from the $4,914. Our average daily membership did go down slightly, but as stated before, it probably will bounce right back up. The Group B weight, which is the extra weighted student count that we get for SPED, for gifted, for lunch programs and those types of things, did increase for the new year. Our teacher experience index did stay at 1.0. Our audit expenditures did go up for this past year, so we can claim for that money outside of the budget limit. So that's been included. Our daily route miles decreased a little bit, but our eligible students to be transported increased, so that offset. Our primary net assessed value increased quite a bit, and so did the Salt River project increase. Now, this is the part of the budget that we estimate because we don't know today what we will be our final expenditures for this year. So we're guessing. We take what we have unencumbered, and then we figure out that we think we will probably have just about $1 million left from this year. But remember that there is down here in this slide. I'll show you where that's going to be eaten up. So we have that carry forward. Then our revenue control limit. So they take the ADM and multiply it by all of the other multipliers and give us a revenue control limit. Then our district additional assistance, that's our capital funds. So that's new money that we will get there. And then we have our override. This is where that $1 million is going to get eaten up. Is the one time that the state gave us this last year. We will not have it next year. So our budget's going to be really close this year in carry forward.
This was a one-time payment from Governor Hobbs to districts of $1 million that happened last year. That will not be happening this year.
So our total maintenance and operations funds for this next year is $36 million. Our unrestricted capital will be $4.5 million. And then our bonds, so we did sell some bonds this last year and we have some carry forwards. So we have about 17 million and that will help with the bond projects. And remember, that's our new school, our transportation department, and some projects that Bob has set aside monies for in deferred maintenance. Then we have our new school facility monies and our adjacent ways. Now, we did increase our adjacent ways from 1.75 million to 1.8 million. And we did that because of our increased assessed values, we were able to increase that without any tax increase. So that's a good. So tonight we're doing our proposed budget, and we will adopt all of the multipliers that have been given to us. Then in September, Dan can bring back with the new budget forms if he chooses, if there's enough difference to make it worth your time. And then the December budget can be done and a May budget revision can be done. And the May revision is the final revision for the year. In July, we will come back with the adopted budget, and it needs to be exactly what the proposed budget is, because that's what we're advertising. Any questions?
Yeah, I have a quick question about the building bond. We still have bonds to sell?
No.
Okay,
We
that was
sold our
going to be my
final one in
question.
December.
So we sold all the bonds, so we don't have to worry about that. My thinking is that the interest that we would have to pay to encourage the sale has gone up. As the interest rates have gone up nationally, so have the cost of our selling bonds, right? I mean,
Right.
people expect a greater return than they used to.
Right.
So, okay, so we don't have any more bonds to sell. Good.
Mr. Kenyon, do you have any questions? No. Okay. I just want to add one thing, and maybe Dr. Monroe can expand on this a little bit on the $1 million loss. And then I know there's something ahead of us about the reassessment of taxes that's going to hit us pretty hard.
The Quasimar.
Yeah, so Vice President Parks and members of the board and those in the audience, we were made aware of a lawsuit happening. I think it's Casimir. It's with a Q. Some people are saying Quasimodo because it's bad news for public schools and public entities. In essence, what happened is in Goodyear and Buckeye, because we are growing and houses are being built, basically the state government, I don't know if it was the assessor's office, basically made a mistake in identifying how some of these lots should be classified for taxes. So this was discovered, and this was 8 years worth of mistakes. And so what's happening now under this lawsuit is the state is recollecting that money from school districts, okay, which is really a raw deal. We have to pay back money for someone else's mistake, basically. Not our mistake. In fact, I'm trying to get someone here at the July 10th meeting to explain it better than I can. That's about $960,000 for Liberty. Now, that is significant for us because unlike our districts around us, we are building. There's new whether it's rentals or however they're classifying, there's new houses that you see in our district a lot more than other districts. So when you go to some of our neighbors, they don't have to pay back nearly as much. The state is stepping in to help recalculate that. So we may not have to pay $960,000, which mind you is $1 million. And look at our budget up there in the 35s. That's a significant chunk of change. But if they recalculate it, we may have to only pay back only about $480,000, $500,000. So, and I hate to even say those words, they're painful to leave, but in essence, what I want the board to know is because of some mistakes by the state government, their agencies, school districts are now going to have to pay back money. It may not be this year. It may not start until the next calendar year. But right now, the superintendents are talking about, how do we pay this back? Can we pay it back in phases? Why do we have to pay this back? Why are we responsible for the mistake that has been imposed on us? And I just want the board to know, because you'll see this play out in the newspapers, it's hitting us a little more significantly because of our growth. And so I don't understand it perfectly, but somehow it's, if you classify a rental property and then that rental property changes and it's reclassified, there was something missed and a lot of mistakes made. So you have, I don't know, 50 school districts in Maricopa County who are all having to pay back some sort of money. And when you get into like the Paradise Valleys of the world, we're talking about multi-million dollars. And so this is a hot topic in this last few weeks. And I made contact with someone just last week, and I'm asking them to come and present to the board so that the public has a good understanding that that wasn't the fault of administration. That wasn't the fault of the governing board. This was a state agency that missed the mark, and we're having to pay back their error over 8 years of tax classification errors. So it's called Kazimir. It's with a Q. It looks like Quasimodo, but you'll probably see something in the newspaper about it. And then we'll have more information for the board. But regardless of whether it goes from $1 million to $500,000, it's still impactful as you look. But again, I'll tell you that it's good to be in Liberty. We have great people. We're growing. So a lot of districts around the county, these numbers are lower, and they're actually having to make a lot of reductions. And not just because ESSER money is going away, but because they're losing enrollment. And so in the future, we'll talk more with the board about possible future bonds and things like that, since we've sold our bonds, because we are growing and we do have needs. But Kazimir is going to be impactful, and we'll have someone hopefully at the next board meeting to go over that more thoroughly with the board.
Thank you, Dr. Monroe. Any other questions? Okay, 2024-25 proposed annual school district expenditure budget. Motion in a second.
Yes, Mr. Vice President. I move that we approve the fiscal year 24-25 proposed annual school district expenditure budget.
I'll second.
Call for a vote. Mr. Kenyon.
Aye.
Ms. Bixler.
Aye.
I'm also an aye. We'll show that pass 3-0. Move on to item 6.2, discussion consideration to approve the revised gifted scope and sequence. Ms. Camp.
Good evening, Mr. President, Board Member Bixler, and Board Member Kenyon. District Administration is requesting the approval of the revised gifted scope and sequence. Let me talk to you about a little bit of work that we've done since coming before you multiple times with this document. We have since further reviewed the statute of ARS 15779 and also the Administrative Code 7-2-406. Ms. Susanna Finn has compared our gifted scope and sequence to the gifted scope and sequence of the Washington Elementary School District, Roosevelt, Scottsdale, Litchfield, Levine, and Tempe school districts. Furthermore, we have adjusted the flow of the document as requested to better align to ADE's gifted scope and sequence template. And we have considered and included all scope and sequence recommendations from the public stakeholder forums. I just want to go through those with you really quickly. Transportation was a revision, and you will find that on page 3. Permission to test form, making sure that we included that. That's on page 4. Further explaining our transfer student process, students coming into our district that are already declared gifted, that's also on page 4. Further explanation of our portfolio process on page 5, including parent input with our individualized gifted plans, you'll find on page 8 and also page 10. updating district administration roles throughout the entire document, professional development for staff, you'll find on page 9, and then also growth of the multi-age gifted program, which is added to page 3. And I am happy to report that is for 3rd and 4th grade multi-age gifted. And so tonight I'm looking for your recommendation and possible review so that we can submit to the state in July and post on our webpage. I just want to publicly thank our parents for attending our parent forum. Mrs. Crowley, who's one of our lead teachers in our gifted program, and then of course Susanna Fenn, who's one of our district coordinators. It was a beast, and I think we've got it right.
Thank you, Ms. Camp. Do you have any questions?
Just a comment. You guys put a lot of work into this. I mean, it's very evident reading through it, trying to dissect it. It's hard for me to dissect it, but you guys have spent a lot of time in there, and thank you for that. And I think that this really narrows things down and kind of gives a nice, clean focus direction. So thank you.
Ms. Bixler?
Yeah, just a quick question. I agree. This is a lot more succinct as I look through it. It's a lot easier to find information that I'm looking for, so I appreciate all the hard work going on to it. I noticed that there was a qualified gifted student that appeared to have performance levels in 3 learning areas. Is that correct? Do we test for that?
We
And
do.
how?
So we use the COGAT assessment, and that's verbal, nonverbal, and quantitative.
Okay.
And the how, it is a test that's online, and we do that 3 times a year. We also have our screener for our kinder students, and we take advantage of the state funding us to screen all 2nd grade students as well.
Okay. Yeah, COGAT's pretty well known.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I'll just add this. I love what we're doing here, and I applaud you because I know you had to go at this a few times, and you came back with something I think that is you've gone above and beyond, and thank you. And I think it's really going to grow our program, and I think that's something that we were looking for. So thank you. Consideration to approve the revised gifted scope and sequence. A motion and a second.
Mr. Vice President, I move that we approve the revised gifted scope and sequence for the 24-25 school year.
Second.
We'll now call for the vote. Mr. Kenyon.
Aye.
Ms. Bixler.
Aye.
I am also an aye. We'll show that pass 3-0. Item 6.3, discussion and consideration to approve Acadience Learning online measures, including the rapid automatic naming assessment of the chosen kindergarten entry assessment for the Liberty Elementary School District. Ms. Wiley?
Hi, I'm replacing Rebecca. I'm here to go over the kindergarten entry assessment. Good evening, Vice President Parks and governing board members. On October 23rd, 2023, House Bill 2060 was implemented, granting each district the autonomy to choose their own kindergarten entry assessment, pending approval from the governing board. The use of the KEA, Kindergarten Entry Assessment, allows teachers to have a clear understanding of and honor the skills that children bring to kindergarten and adjust their instruction accordingly. The data from the chosen assessment will be used to identify students who are at risk for reading deficiencies. We recommend approving Acadience Learning Online as our kindergarten entry assessment. This assessment, already administered 3 times throughout the school year, at the beginning of the school, the middle of the school, and the end of the school, meets House Bill 2060 requirements and is familiar to our teachers. At Liberty, we benchmark all kindergarten students on first sound fluency, phonemic awareness, and letter naming. Additionally, we use the RAN, random automatic naming or rapid automatic naming assessment to identify students at risk for reading difficulties, including dyslexia. Rapid naming speed is a strong predictor of reading performance and helps teachers to identify students in need of additional targeted support.
Any questions?
Yes, Mr. Vice President, RAN, can you describe to me what that looks like as far as the testing procedure itself?
Yes, I can. It's actually quite simple. It starts off with pictures. I think there are 4 or 5 repetitive pictures that repeat across the page in random orders. And they have to go dog, house, curl, chair. And they have to say it really quickly.
Okay, so
And
it's
then
not
it
like
progresses to letters. And they have to name the letters quickly. And then numbers.
Okay. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any questions, Mr. Kenyon? No. Okay. I have just a quick question. You said that they can identify dyslexia.
It won't identify dyslexia. It will just be an indicator that they
indicator.
need targeted support, that
Okay.
there may be an at risk.
Okay. I think it's really important we start identifying that as quickly as possible. So thank you. I appreciate that.
And Mrs. Daniel and Mrs. Camplemy, so there's no additional cost to this because we currently use the program, correct?
Correct.
And our teachers are already trained for Acadians.
Correct.
So this would meet the requirements of the House bill, what we're currently doing.
All the requirements, yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was going to be my only comment was the cost, but also that the teachers, there's been so much placed on teachers recently, you know, just this last year, what we're coming into. And I think that sticking with this is a great idea, but
It is a more efficient assessment aligned to the purpose.
Okay. Consideration to approve Acadians learning online measures, including the rapid automatic naming. I'll call for a vote in a second.
Mr. Vice President, I move that we approve Acadians Learning online measures, including the rapid automatic naming, RAN, assessment as the chosen kindergarten entry assessment for the Liberty Elementary School District, number 25.
I'll second.
I'll call for a vote. Mr. Kenyon?
Aye.
Ms. Bixler?
Aye.
I'm also an aye. I'll show that pass 3-0. Move on to item 6.4, discussion and consideration to approve the district agreement with Sierra Schools for CCB program staffing. Ms. Hamrick.
Good evening, Vice President Parks and governing board members. Tonight, district is requesting approval to continue our agreement with Sierra Schools following the successful implementation of the CCB program during the SY24 school year. The program has significantly enhanced our students' educational experiences in the area of classroom behavior and learning within the program. So we're asking for it to be renewed this year. We currently have, last year we had 32 students in the program. Any questions?
Any questions?
Yes, real quickly, the one part of the offerings out through the Sierra Schools appears to be a day program that the students go to. Is that correct?
That is the next one, the next agenda item. Oh. This one was for our program. Last year, we couldn't find any teachers. Teachers were leaving in the middle of the year. They didn't have the skills. So this program that they provide the 3 classroom teachers, 6 paraprofessionals, a behavior interventionist, a counselor, and assistant director. And then these kids have become really successful. We've even had some kids even go back to their home schools, and we're successful. So we're pretty proud of the accomplishment our kids have done in this program.
It's good to see the progression that we're seeing through these kids and how this is helping them. Just for a budget standpoint, this is already allocated for in the budget, correct? Already in what we've
Yes.
seen. Okay.
Yeah,
Thank
this will just be a renewal, a continual that the board did last year. Yeah.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kenyon. Consideration to approve the district agreement with Sierra Schools for CCB program staffing. A vote in a second, please.
Mr. Vice President, I move that we approve the district to continue the agreement with Sierra Schools for the CCB program staffing for 24-25 school year.
And I will second.
I'll call for a vote. Mr. Kenyon?
Aye.
Ms. Bixler?
Aye.
I'm also an aye. We'll show that pass 3-0. Thank you, Ms. Hemrick. And you're here for round two. She's here for round
Round
two.
two.
So 6.5, discussion consideration to approve the district agreement with Sierra Schools for a private D placement. Ms. Hamrick.
So this is another renewal. The district administration is requesting your approval to continue our agreement with Sierra Schools to provide a private D placement for students requiring the most restrictive environment. So those are the students that do not go to general ed whatsoever, that the behaviors have really progressed and they need a higher level of skills. This is state approved. So there's a list of state approved, and we just are lucky enough to have one that we have on our campus. So rather than outsourcing kids to ACES or to Desert Choice or to Excel, we have something on our campus. There are a few districts who have that, and we are lucky to have that. So I'm asking for your approval to. We have 10 spots in this most restrictive environment, and I'm asking for approval on that as well.
Any questions? Ms. Bixler?
Now my question. So we have 10 spots within this program that we're paying for.
Yes.
Have we ever exceeded that amount?
Yes, we have. And when I first got here, there were 29 outplaced students. And one of the situations where the CCB program was not in place, and sometimes kids would go more restrictive even though they didn't need to. So when I got here, I said, let's relook at this whole thing. So we have 10, and we did not go over 10 this year.
And if we do exceed it, at some point, do we have to bring in another teacher? Is that what our obligation
we
is?
exceed the 10 for the state private endorsed deplacement, then what we would need to do is we would need to pay for that extra student. And I watch that like a hawk because we have 10 students, and the expectation is that's all we should have. That we should have no more going to a private placement, because that is a very restrictive environment. They have no access to general ed.
Right, so quite a different learning environment.
It is a
isn't
learning-
It
yes.
is the most restrictive learning environment.
And that program, we've had that program since before I was here, but they had I don't know, way over 10, and then we had Desert Choice, and we had Excel, and we had all those others at Buckeye Learning Center, and we do not have that anymore. We only have the Sierra Schools, which is nice because it's on Freedom. We don't have to pay that transportation cost, which we would if it were in any other outsourced place.
Now you say we don't exceed 10. What's our average there?
10.
No. So our average
Yeah,
there is-
well, I think right now there's a couple of 8th graders, so we have a couple spots in case the children in the CCB class have difficulties with that specialized instruction, and we feel that they need a more restrictive environment.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Kenyon?
Again, just a comment. I'm very, very proud that our district has this within the district. Very familiar with places like ACES, and they're not. They have their place, definitely.
150,000 per student.
And I'm very, very glad that we have that within our district, and I'm very supportive of this for these kids that need this additional support. So.
I'm just going to add this. I've been here almost 3 years now, and I can't say enough about what you've done with our special ed program. So thank you. Number two, the amount of load that we're going to be getting over the next few years with the ELA programs and the other stuff. I just want everybody to realize the load that's going to be put on our district. the costs associated with it. So Kay's got a lot on, Ms. Hambrick's got a lot on her shoulders, and we'll help you out any way we can. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Consideration to approve the district agreement with Sierra Schools for a private D placement. I'll call for a vote, a motion in a second.
Mr. Vice President, I move that we approve the district agreement with Sierra Schools for private D placement.
I'll second.
I'll call for a vote. Mr. Kenyon.
Aye.
Ms. Bixler.
Aye.
I am also an aye. We'll show that passed 3-0. Item 6.6, first read. This is for discussion only of the policy of DJE bidding and purchasing procedures. Dr. Monroe.
Yeah, Vice President Parks, members of the board. Again, as was mentioned, this is a first read only. We've undergone a lot of audits recently. Unlike our charter competitors, we are audited quite extensively as a public school. One of the things that came out of our grants management, grants fiscal monitoring audit was that we had a piece of our policy that was a bit outdated. And so we worked with Clyde, with Mr. Dangerfield, our legal, to update that policy. So what you have in front of you, it has the updated language that's been dictated by the audit that would bring us in compliance moving forward. That's about my best explanation. So if the board has really good questions, I'll have to defer to Mrs. Williams or Mr. Dangerfield, but this is a first read only.
Any questions?
Yeah, my only question is why we're adding this text, but you just explained that we're just getting in compliance with what we hadn't been in compliance with before.
Correct. And for this item and the next few items, we would bring it back for a second read at the July 10th meeting. And once in a while with transition and changes, Mrs. Bixler, these kind of things happen where there's a gap in a policy because something is missed. So we'll be in compliance.
Mr. Kenyon?
No, I don't have anything.
I don't have anything either, so I guess we'll move on to 6.7. This is first read and discussion only of policy regarding GBEF, staff use of digital communications and electronic devices, social media policy. Dr. Mohorn.
Vice President Parks. Vice President Parks, Governing Board, Dr. Monroe summed it up very well. Again, this is just a first read, and it is matching our updated policy, and this is updating the reg that was necessary to meet the demands of communication, specifically through social media. Best practice is to have a specific policy and or regulation addressing communication through social media, and other surrounding school districts have really already put these policies and regs in place, and it's recommended to have our legal has reviewed this, and a second read and approval will take place during the July 10th board meeting. Any questions?
Thank you, Dr. Mohorn. Mr. Kenyon?
All right.
Make you waited out.
That pause there. Thank you, Dr. Mahorn. So in this, I've read through it numerous times. The main purpose of this for me is what it states right at the top, to protect our district students. And so I'm very in agreement with this, making sure that our students are protected. I've read through it. I understand it. There's just one section that I have a concern about, and that is on the very first page. There's A, B, C, and then expectations of communicating electronically. After letter B, employees shall only use approved technologies with parents to send one-way multi-parent messages. All responses or correspondence with individual parents or families must be conducted through district email or parent view. I understand why we would limit an employee from contacting the students on personal devices. That's very clear. As for employees contacting parents, I don't really necessarily understand the reasoning why we would have to limit that to be only district email or parent view. With this language, I understand if it's a district issue, if it's a teaching issue, but when it's talking about employees shall only, that's my concern. So
Clyde, would you like to address that? I think we talked about that a little bit.
Well, first I would say that this actually was already in the policy. This isn't an addition to it. This was already there, but still we're here and we can talk about it for sure. And I don't really have any objection to changing that if you'd like.
Is the concern, Member Kenyon, because it's shall only? Are those the words that concern you? Kind of, I'm trying to.
Yeah, okay, so just hypothetical here. If we have an employee of the district, say it's a teacher, and they have some outside relationship with a family. I'll use myself an example. If there's a teacher at one of our district schools who has, we go to the same church, or our kids play together and we're together, this is saying employees shall only use approved technologies by the district to communicate, electronically. So potentially this could be, somebody could weaponize this and use it to target a staff member is what I'm getting at. And I just want to see if there's some language that can clarify that when you're talking about district stuff, or, do you kind of get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. And I think you're absolutely right that it's private communication that is between friends. I mean, that's very different than the district's official communication.
Correct.
So maybe we can come up with some way to state that just a little bit.
Okay.
All right.
I'd appreciate that.
So, Chris, you're kind of saying, let's say your neighbor gets a job at the school district, right? And you text your neighbor about watching your house or something. So this would limit that, or an employee, this would limit that communication because of this language right here. That's kind of what you're getting at.
Yes. So that's what employees shall only. That kind of, as long as we can find some language in there that protects outside of the normal work hours, talking about district things.
Yeah,
so.
we can do that.
Okay, thank you.
I think if you just added something like for district purposes or something like that.
Yeah.
Ms. Bixler?
No, I hadn't thought about that. I read through that too and just anticipated that was normal, so I didn't even think about it. But you're right. Yeah, there's a good opportunity that because we are a small district, that we're going to have a social relationship with some of the employees here. So.
Thank you.
All right, with that, we'll move on to 6.8. First read discussion only of policy GBEA, staff ethics. Dr. Mohorn.
And this is a first read only. Pages. Making sure I got the right page. Oh, the proposed policy update includes just providing cross references to two additional policies. It's GCQF and GDQD. Second read and approval will take place again at the July 10th board meeting. Again, legal has reviewed and approved the proposed language in this. And it's also provided to you. I'm sorry if I interrupted. Okay. It's also provided to you the proposed languages in red provided to you as well.
Mr. Kenyon, any questions?
No, I don't.
Ms. Bixler?
Yeah, I do have a couple. I noticed that we added the word grievance. How is that different than criticism? I don't understand why we're adding that word.
There is actually, Member Bixler, there's actually a grievance policy when an employee has a problem with their employer. There's actually a policy, I believe it's a grievance policy.
Yes,
Clyde,
that is correct. Yes.
That they go through the steps to, and it's called a grievance, correct?
To resolve a grievance, yes. It's if they have a particular complaint or problem with their work environment, their situation, their supervisor, whatever, there's a grievance procedure that is set up in policy already for handling that. And so that's what this is directed at.
Yeah, I'm wondering, you talked about it being a complaint. Would that capture both words, grievance and?
Yeah, effectively it is. Yeah, grievance is a complaint.
So I'm just wondering if we could just shorten it and change that word from grievance and What's the other word in there?
Well, why don't we put grievance / complaint so that it picks up both, because grievance, you want that language in there because there's actually a policy that's called the grievance policy. It's in the title.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we probably want to
So
pick
you
up
need to
both
keep
words.
grievance.
Yes. So I just add both those words together with the slash in between them. Does that work?
Yeah, that's fine with me. I just wondered why that was in there. So
Yeah, it's actually the grievance policy. I can't name it off the top of my head.
I don't know the number right off the top of my head either.
But it is titled.
second question, why is it that we added a board member to the list of people in this? I mean, aren't we considered others? Wouldn't we fall into there? It seems kind of petty to me to stick that in there.
But it just seemed like they were left out. That the board members, it identifies other categories, and in a school district, it's a significant part of the operation of the school district.
Yeah, I just don't think it's necessary. Again, I think it appears to make us look petty. And finally, this seems very adversarial to me, especially the last part, the very last bit. It appears to me to be a statement that you're guilty until you're proven innocent on this. I'm uncomfortable with a lot of this document.
A lot of that language, Member Bixler, you'll see in other policies, that red paragraph. And staff ethics, if an employee ever has an unprofessional conduct or what have you, usually this is the policy that is quoted for an employee's behavior. So that red that you see, the failure to comply, that's pretty standard language that you see throughout the policy manual.
Very standard.
And again, it just seems to come up very adversarial to me. It looks like we're putting the board at an adversarial position with the employees. And I don't think that's a good way for us to look.
From an HR standpoint, that is very standard language, that last paragraph.
I have nothing to add, so we'll move on to 6.9. Revised counselor job description. Dr. Mohorn.
Vice President Parks, Governing Board. This is just a revised school counselor job description to match what we've done with the board policy. It was just refined to align with recent policy changes. Again, legal has reviewed and approved, and both the red line and the black line, the clean version, is also attached. So it has the changes, not major changes, but changes, just revisions to align with our recent policy changes.
Thank you, Dr. Mohorn. Mr. Kenyon, any questions?
I just appreciate these changes, and especially the parent consent, parent involvement. Getting the parents in there is very, very important to me, so I appreciate that.
Ms. Bixler. Revised counselor job description. I'll call for a motion in a second.
This isn't the first read, is it? No, I'm sorry. I was back with policy.
Yeah,
I apologize.
It's an action item. I even highlighted it as action.
Yeah.
So
Mr. Vice President, I make a motion to approve the updated counselor job description. Excuse me.
Second.
Call for the vote. Mr. Kenyon.
Aye.
Ms. Bixler.
Aye.
I am also an aye. I'll show that passed 3-0. 6.10, revised psychologist job description. Dr. Mohorn.
Similar to the counselor job description, we have refined it to align with recent policy changes and to match with our current practice. Again, legal has reviewed and approved. And again, attached for your review is the red line with the changes and the clean version as well.
Are there any questions, Mr. Kenyon?
No.
Ms. Bixler?
Not really a question, just the same. I'm glad we're taking the psychologist out of a counseling role. That doesn't seem to be right. Also taking them out of an instructional practice teaching to our teachers. I'm assuming that was because we were struggling with finding a way to control behavior in classes, so we're asking about that with a psychologist. Was my guess as to why they even had a instructional role.
Yeah,
but I'm
we-
glad to see that stuff's taken out.
Yeah, we aligned it with what they're actually doing, their job description, what they're actually doing in the building. So
Yeah, that seems to be not that psychologists aren't wonderful human beings and well trained and knowledgeable, but that seems like a stretch to me to ask them to counsel and also
Absolutely.
instruct.
right, absolutely.
I will say this. Thank you, Ms. Hemrick. You did a lot of work on this. I know she spent some time on this, getting this all refined. And so thank you for that. I appreciate it. Revised psychologist job description, a motion and a second.
Mr. Vice President, I move that we approve the updated psychologist job description.
Second.
Okay, we'll call for a vote. Mr. Kenyon?
Aye.
Ms. Bixler?
Aye.
I'm also an aye. We'll show that pass 3-0. Okay, call to the public. I have one here. Adam Talabas. Reminded you have 3 minutes. It'll be showing up on the board there for you, and you can start anytime you'd like.
Is that microphone on?
I completely screwed up your name. I totally apologize.
Did you know Arizona is one of 8 states to implement flag football as a varsity level? Hi, my name is Adam. I am currently a 7th grader at Rainbow Valley Elementary School. I am here today to talk to you about flag football. Did you know that our district is one of the few left that does not offer flag football? The NFL is encouraging more children to play flag football than tackle due to the decline in participation of tackle football. We all know the main reason, safety. However, there are other advantages to flag football such as cost, co-ed sports, and future athletic preparedness. The average cost of tackle football costs around $800 compared to flag footballs at around $75. Flag football setup costs are extremely cost effective. A game would only take 10 cones, 10 flags, a field, and oh yeah, a ball, of course. It can easily be introduced as a 5-on-5, 7-on-7, or 10, or even a 9-on-9. With this size of our district, it wouldn't be hard for us to have multiple games at one location, thus allowing us to have fewer refs, fewer bus trips, and fuel costs. Flag football can easily be co-ed if you wish. Today, the NFL Flag Football Association has over 1,800 leagues nationwide, with an average of 700,000 players. Of those 700,000, 25% were female athletes. The Arizona Interscholastic Association recently announced their 2024 girls flag football teams have doubled for the 2024 season. Offering a co-ed sport would benefit all student athletes district-wide. Flag football is a great way to introduce a child into loving the game of football. Football is much more than just pulling flags, catching, and throwing. Football is like a game of chess, predicting what your opponent is going to do and be 2 steps ahead of them, knowing when to give up a rook just to swoop in with your knight unexpectedly and shift the momentum of the game into your favor. Just like chess, flag football teaches you how to win or lose and how to accept both and learn from them. With less contact in flag football and more involvement in every play, it is easier for a child to learn the fundamentals of the game before making the decision to play in the next level. The NFL has stated it hopes to see flag football in the 2028 Olympics. How awesome would it be to see one of our students from Liberty District, have the opportunity to play in the very first flag football Olympics? For that to happen, we will need to get started very quickly on flag football in our school district. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Well done.
Well done, young man. Do you want to come next board meeting? Thank you. Appreciate it.
We need more like him. 8.1, board comments or agenda topic requests. Mr. Kenyon,
None right now.
Ms. Bixler.
Yeah, I have a couple. First of all, I played 10 years of adult flag football and I loved it. It was so much fun. Monday mornings were tough because we played on Sunday and I didn't practice at all. So I was pretty sore on Mondays, but I loved the game and I agree. So one of the things I'd like us to do is let's take a look at what it would take to add flag football, intramural, in district, and let's start there. Second thing, there was kind of interesting points made as far as the student and special ed. I would like for us to take a look at what it would take cost-wise, resources and staff, to do an extended school week for some very specific students that need that additional time. I'm making sense?
Yep.
We currently have extended school year in the summer for some special education students. Would this be different than extended school year?
Actually, my vision is not a lot different. It extends the school week for those children that retention problem.
During the academic year.
Correct.
Okay, just to clarify. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Bixler. 9.1, upcoming board meetings. We have a board meeting on Monday, July 8th. That's actually a work study session. Wednesday, July 10th, that's our regular board meeting. July 31st, regular board meeting. Monday, August 19th is a work study session and a regular board meeting. Monday, September 16th is a study session and a regular board meeting. For those that are here, are those dates going to work for you?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Well, with that, my favorite part, we're going to adjourn the meeting tonight at 6:43.